Property law operates as a system of rights, liabilities, and control over assets. It provides the legal architecture for every transaction. To deconstruct this system, we begin with a foundation in high-level legal scholarship, specifically the Transfer of Property Act 1882, or a mere right to sue, hold zero transferable value. Items like public offices or military stipends and future maintenance rights are similarly barred from exchange. They cannot enter the stream of commerce. Section 6 acts as the master filter, determining which legal elements qualify for transfer before any other rules apply. Once an asset clears that initial filter, Sections 7 and 8 establish the basic requirements for a transaction. The transferor must have the capacity to contract and hold a valid title. This block animation demonstrates the rule of Section 8. As rights transfer from Node A to Node B, the transferee receives exactly the interests the transferor was capable of passing. Nemo quod non habet. The title passed is limited by the title held. The timing of that interest dictates its classification. A vested interest under Section 19 takes effect unconditionally and remains valid even if the transferee dies before taking possession. A contingent interest under Section 21 stays locked until a specific uncertain event occurs. Routing property to an unborn person requires the specific sequence found in Section 13. The interest must first be held by a living trustee before vesting in the unborn person upon their birth. Under this rule, the interest created for the unborn person must include the entire remainder of the transferor's interest. These sequencing requirements ensure that every interest can be traced back to a valid existing title holder, preventing the creation of legal gaps in ownership. When rigid adherence to procedural rules creates an unjust result, the TPA deploys equitable doctrines to correct the outcome. Section 35 introduces the doctrine of election. If a transfer confers a benefit while imposing a burden, the owner must either confirm the entire transfer or reject it. They cannot accept the benefit while refusing the obligation. If the owner fails to elect within a reasonable time, the law deems the transfer confirmed, and the burden is legally accepted. Section 41 addresses holding out. This occurs when a true owner allows another person to act as the ostensible owner of a property. The historical jurisdiction for this rule was established in the 1872 case of Ram Kumar Kundu v. McQueen, involving a bona fide purchaser who relied on the apparent ownership of a seller. The court held that a true owner who allows another to appear as the owner is stopped from recovering property from a purchaser who acted in good faith and with reasonable care. During a pending lawsuit, Section 52 prevents parties from alienating the property in question to defeat the eventual court order. This is the doctrine of lis pendens. Equity acts to stop parties from using procedural technicalities to facilitate bad faith transactions. Section 53A provides a defensive mechanism for buyers who have taken possession of property under a contract. In Mat Musa v. Aghor Kumar Ganguly, a seller attempted to evict a buyer because their written agreement was unregistered. The buyer had already taken possession and acted on the contract. The court protected the buyer. Delivery of possession and partial performance of the contract overrode the technical lack of registration. To claim this protection, the contract must be written and for consideration, and the buyer must have performed an act in furtherance of the agreement. Section 53A acts as a purely defensive right. It protects the buyer from being dispossessed by the seller, but it does not grant the buyer the power to sue for formal title. Section 54 designs a sale as the transfer of ownership for a price. If the property is valued at 100 rupees or more, the law requires a registered instrument to complete the exchange. A lease under Section 105 transfers a specific right to enjoy the property for a set time. This is distinct from a license, which provides only personal permission and does not transfer any actual interest in the land. Section 58 defines a mortgage as the transfer of an interest in property, specifically to secure a debt or loan. The 6 mortgage types differ by possession and recovery. Usufructuary gives lenders possession. Simple leaves it with the owner. For multiple debts, Sections 81 and 82 apply. Marshalling lets creditors pick which assets sell first, while contribution requires co-owners to pay their proportional share. Section 122 governs gifts. These are voluntary transfers made without consideration. Under the rule for onerous gifts, A receiver who accepts a gift with both benefits and obligations must accept the entire bundle. Every legal instrument in the TPA provides a specific method for reconfiguring the rights exchanged between parties. The Indian Easements Act of 1882 deals with rights over another person's land. Under Section 4, an easement is an encumbrance held for the beneficial enjoyment of one's own property. This visualization shows the relationship between the dominant tenement, which receives the benefit, and the servient tenement, which bears the burden of the easement. Section 15 establishes the requirements for acquiring an easement by prescription. A person must use the right continuously for 20 years. In P. Chandrasekaran v. S. V. Nair, the Supreme Court clarified that this 20-year use must occur as of right, nec v, nec clam, nec precario, meaning without force, secrecy, or permission. If the owner provides express or implied permission, it immediately defeats the prescriptive claim. Permissive use cannot mature into a legal right of easement. The law rewards the open assertion of rights, while ensuring that temporary, permissive access does not lead to a permanent loss of property control. While the TPA governs transfers between the living, the Indian Succession Act controls the legal declaration of a person's intention for their property after death. A valid will requires the testator to be a competent major of sound mind, and the document must be attested by at least 2 witnesses who see the testator sign. The Supreme Court serves as the ultimate enforcer of these rules, ensuring that every transfer follows the established statutory and equitable frameworks. Much like the principle of separate legal personality in Salomon v. Salomon, property law maintains a separation between the legal title to an asset and the mere physical possession of it. The Transfer of Property Act provides a structured set of rules for moving and securing assets. Understanding how these statutory requirements interact with equitable exceptions is the final requirement for establishing effective control over property.